I hope it's the end of the era in Portland, but I don't think it is because Damian Lillard, you have stood by loyalty for so long. Welcome to episode 20 of Everything Sports with Aman. I'm your host, Aman and Kanye, and I talk about the hottest topics in sports over the course of the past week. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk about Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather boxing match going down this Sunday. And obviously, you guys know my prediction. Chelsea extending Tuchel, and honestly, when they fired Frank Lampard in the first place, I thought they were going to get a different manager after the season, but obviously not now. Fantasy Minute, obviously baseball, and I'm gonna live stream the fantasy football draft when I do it in a month and a half. And NBA playoffs round one, not disappointing. And is it the end of an era in Portland? There's so many ways you can spin this question, but I think it's the end of an era in Portland. I'll explain why later. And just one quick announcement, because all my views are coming on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, I'm going to be moving all my podcasts episodes to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. So I'm not going to post them on YouTube anymore. But my live streams, my monthly live streams, is going to stay on YouTube and might even be on Twitch. I'm still figuring that out. Now this YouTube channel will only be for live streams. And Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor will be for my normal episodes like this one. Right? So don't get it confused when you don't see a video on YouTube next Friday. Starting next Friday, I'm not going to be on YouTube posting these episodes. It's only going to be for live streams, this channel, and maybe even on Twitch. Look on Twitter or Instagram when I post my Twitch. But anyways, without further ado, we got Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather on June 6th, this Sunday. My prediction, I said you guys probably know my prediction, even though I haven't talked about it. Floyd Mayweather is going to beat Logan Paul. And yes, I know there's no official winner or no judges, but the crazy thing is, because it's entertainment, Floyd Mayweather has brought up the point of just entertaining. It's going to be a great exhibition match. The thing is, the internet will be the judge of this fight on these streams. They will be the judge. It'll be all over Twitter. It'll be all over Instagram. If someone gets knocked out, wow, my prediction, the only way Logan can win is just because he is stronger and bigger than Floyd Mayweather. That's the only reason why. But Floyd Mayweather, if you think about it, between Logan Paul and Jake Paul, let's see who Logan Paul has fought. All right, he only fought once against KSI, British YouTuber. I watch his videos, by the way, side note. But KSI, you can see that he worked so hard and beat Logan Paul. And then Logan Paul's next fight is 3 years later against one of the greatest boxers of all time. Yeah, Floyd Mayweather's not in his prime, but he can still box. There's no if and buts about it. He can box. And you got Jake Paul fighting Anderson Gibb, also a British YouTuber, fighting Nate Robinson, and then Ben Askren. You're fighting these UFC fighters. You're not fighting boxers. And when these UFC fighters call you out to come into the octagon and fight them in UFC, you keep saying that they're calling you out because it'll make you look weak because you don't know UFC. But these UFC fighters are forced to come in the boxing ring with you. So how does that make sense? It doesn't make sense at all. Between the both Paul brothers, this is the first actual professional boxer any one of them is fighting. Floyd Mayweather's just got to watch out for like Logan Paul's strength. Floyd Mayweather is a very fast boxer. Like he boxes fast, punches fast. I think it's gonna be a great match either way, but Floyd Mayweather is gonna beat Logan Paul. There's no way in. If Logan Paul beats Floyd Mayweather, then oh man, it's gonna be one of the greatest upsets in sports history. I agree with Logan Paul when he says that. By the way, it's gonna be the one of the greatest upsets in sports history. Floyd Mayweather, someone who's 50-0, loses to Logan Paul. Imagine that. Even though it's an exhibition, won't count against professional record. Will still Logan Paul will be a name brought up when you talk about Floyd Mayweather if Logan Paul wins. Now we got Chelsea extending Thomas Tuchel. Um, I remember talking about this. Forget which episode. It's been a while now. When I talked about Frank Lampard being fired from Chelsea. Chelsea at that point was eighth in the Premier League, but then Tuchel took over and turned around Chelsea's fortune. Literally, just turned around Chelsea's fortune. If you said when Chelsea hired Thomas Tuchel that they'd win the UEFA Champions League, I think you're pretty crazy. And wow, man, they have risen to fourth. They were eighth when I talked about Chelsea last. Yes, they lost two out of the last five, 3-2. But you gotta look at what Chelsea has managed to accomplish. In Liverpool, we said they might not even make the UEFA Champions League. They did. They turned it on since I started talking about them. Their last loss, Liverpool's last loss, English Premier League loss, the UEFA Champions League does not count. Their last loss, Liverpool really struggled. So it was against Chelsea on March 4th, but then they won every. Oh, wait, actually, no. See, look, they lost two games in a row to Chelsea and Fulham. They shouldn't have lost to Fulham, who's 18th, not even going to be in the English Premier League next season. But Thomas Tuchel is why we're here, and this is such a great move. But what I don't want to happen is like we hear so many coaches on fire one season, leading their team to the promised land, leading their teams to the uh, promised land, but then kind of fall off the next season. What I mean by that is take it Nick Nurse. You fired Dwayne Casey, but then you still got Kawhi Leonard and everyone. Nick Nurse. When one superstar leaves, how can you coach? How can you coach? Is the Raptors didn't do well this season? That doesn't mean you fire Nick Nurse, but what I mean is that you gotta be able to coach when coach for you need to be a great coach for years in a row. I don't want Tuchel to be a coach that coached perfectly one season and then falls off the next. Because there are many coaches in sports history, in fact, that are great one year and then suck the next year. But Thomas Tuchel, man, if he keeps it up, then Chelsea can win the English Premier League next season. I firmly believe that. If Tuchel was Chelsea's coach the entire season, they're winning the English Premier League. That's my take. So Fantasy Minute, obviously just baseball, where I talk about the 5 players you should add on your fantasy baseball team if you want to stay at the top of your league or you're still trying to get into a playoff spot. And now, the common theme in these fantasy minutes are San Francisco Giants players. And now, let's get it started. Evan Longoria, third baseman for the San Francisco Giants. That's our first Giant here, 37% rostered. He's gonna only Aaron Judge has a higher exit velocity than than him. Logan Webb, starting pitcher for the San Francisco Giants, 14% rostered. So 14% rostered for the San Francisco Giants. Second Giants player, Ty France, first, second, third baseman for the Seattle. He's 27% rostered. These are one of the best waiver wire finds, by the way, if he's available in your league. And then you got Adbert Alzolay, starting pitcher for the Chicago Cubs, 35% rostered. And then Jock Peterson, first baseman, outfielder for Chicago Cubs, 32% rostered. And I'm sure all baseball fans know about Jock Peterson because of his home run derby performance a few years ago against Vlad Guerrero or Guerrero Jr. And with that, that ends Fantasy Minute for baseball. Hopefully that helps your team if these players are available in your league. And now we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs in round one and how it continues to not disappoint. And the competitiveness, I feel like we lacked that in the past season. Obviously, because it was all of a sudden players got barely a month and a half of rest between the bubble season or the bubble and this NBA season. But I feel like the competitive nature wasn't there. But when you get to these NBA playoffs, man, they did not disappoint. Now let's go with Jazz Grizzlies. Grizzlies won that first game, obviously due to Donovan Mitchell being out. They could have won game two. They could have won a couple of games. They're young. They're just playing with heart. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually win a round next year if they make it to the playoffs. Then we got Clippers Mavericks. We'll save that for later. I'll talk about Portland Denver in the Portland segment, and then we got the Sixers Wizards. Sixers were always going to beat the Wizards. I don't know why when they were up 3-0, if people were saying the Wizards could pull it off, they were never going to pull it off. Knicks Hawks, sorry New York fans. 6 of the last 7 times the Knicks have made it to the playoffs, they've gotten eliminated in the first round. The Knicks, Julius Randle, Draymond said it best. He's just trying to do much. It's his first playoff game as the number one option. His first playoff series in his career. And he's the number one option because he had a breakout year. He said the strengths that you have during the season, you're not going to have in the playoffs because teams are going to lock you down and prevent you from using those strengths. And that's what happened in the Sox-Knicks series. Julius Randle tried to do too much, and it just didn't work out. And then we got the Bucks Heat. Everyone thought that was going to be a great series. Game 1 went to overtime, I believe, or nearly over. Yeah, Game 1 went to overtime, and then after that, the Bucks just took over. That was a stat where the Heat as a team in the Bucks series scored like 342 points. But then the Nets' big three in its first 4 playoff games together, they scored 1 point less than the entire Miami Heat team. Like, the Heat, Jimmy Butler had to do better. He seemed like he didn't even care after each loss. And then the Nets Celtics are the Nets Celtics. I don't gotta say much about them. Nets just don't lose to the Bucks because when you got KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, there's no way you could lose. You cannot lose. It is a championship or bust year because Klay Thompson's coming back next year. Every team is going to be healthy next year, and they're going to be coming for your head, even if you don't win the title. And so, Clippers Mavericks, man. Mavericks are leading 3-2. The fun fact of this series is that the away team has won every game because Dallas won in LA for game 1 and 2. LA came to Dallas, won games 3 and 4, and then Dallas won game 5 in LA. That's just kind of funny. There've been a couple series like that over the past few years. That's just funny to me. But I'm picking Luka Doncic and the Mavs to beat the Clippers and Kawhi to leave the LA Clippers. I will talk about that in another episode, but I think Kawhi is going to leave the LA Clippers if the Clippers get eliminated in the first round, or rather, he should. But Suns Lakers, where do I even start? What this series proved? LeBron did his part, man. LeBron did his part. He was trying to be aggressive last night. It's just not enough in the tank. But Dennis Schroeder, you declined the contract offer because you wanted to be paid $20 million a year. You blew that opportunity. Kyle Kuzma, why? Alex Caruso, Wesley Matthews. Do you think that's a good bench, guys? Like, other than Montrezl Harrell, why is Vogel not using Montrezl Harrell? It's like heard all the talk and just used him game 5 and 6, but he would play 0 minutes a game. He's averaging 6 minutes per game in these playoffs. How does that make sense for the sixth man of the year? You couldn't incorporate him. Why do you let Rondo leave? Why do you trade McGee? Why do you let Dwight Howard leave? Could have re-signed them. Those were the big men to help Anthony Davis not get hurt because of staying in the interior. Those were the big men. Lakers front office, Rob Pelinka, you got to get it together, man. You need to give LeBron help because I promise you this is not a finals roster because all these teams that you're playing got way better. And it just exposed Frank Vogel and the Lakers' depth, the front office altogether. This entire series, losing by 30 in Phoenix and then getting embarrassed on your home floor. Like, really? Now, last segment of the day, the end of an era in Portland. I say it's the end of an era in Portland because Damian Lillard, I hope it's the end of the era in Portland, but I don't think it is because Damian Lillard, you have stood by loyalty for so long. Just like Russell Westbrook did with Oklahoma City Thunder. You have stood by them for so long. And you want stars to come to you in Portland, but truth is, Portland's just not that kind of market. And nor was OKC. They traded for Paul George, got Carmelo Anthony, that didn't work out. Traded Paul George, Melo left. They think they traded Melo. And then Russell Westbrook said, I would welcome a trade also. Westbrook knew he done everything for that city and just wanted a championship. Damian Lillard, I know you keep saying that you won't leave Portland. It is the best for you. And he did post a cryptic Instagram tweet on a quote from Nipsey Hussle. And obviously, it could be taken out of hand, this Instagram thing, but and he could be frustrated after how the series went, getting 55 points, still in a loss, most 3-pointers in a playoff game in NBA history, beating Klay Thompson's record. So there was that, and still lost to Nikola Jokic. I mean, no one can submit their votes yet, but this shows that Jokic is probably going to win MVP because of how he just dismantled Dame. And now, Dame said, how long should I stay dedicated? How long till opportunity meet preparation? The great Nipsey Hussle. So, wow. Now, we got a situation in Portland where you have to look to trade. You have to look to trade. You have to look to trade CJ McCollum. You have to. So now, all right. So CJ McCollum on the move. Like, I think so because you need to break up this backcourt. They're not gonna win because no one plays defense. I know there's backcourts that don't play defense, but other players, they're defensive. Who do the Portland Trailblazers have? For one, Robert Covington is not going to solve your problems. They need to trade for a star to make Damian Lillard stay, or else Damian Lillard is just going to say he's done everything for the city, done everything for the organization, which is true. And if Dame says that, the Portland Trailblazers has to treat him well. You know the only reason why you've been relevant is LaMarcus Aldridge, who's gone, and Damian Lillard. It's the only reason why. Dame has given the organization everything. If he requests a trade, then trade him. As simple as that, man. Should be an end of an era in Portland, but I don't think it is. That's my take on it. Thanks for tuning in to episode 20. And remember, episode 21 onwards, I will just be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And only live streams will be on this channel and my Twitch once I create it. And so thanks for tuning in to episode 20. Have a great week. Bye.